every time you say "now we're back at," it's a drinking game.
We will be incredibly drunk.
I mean, I feel like
Now we're back at shots.
it's so much. It's gonna be constant.
Well, the listeners can play too.
Yeah.
Y'all have fun.
No,
Now we're
not
back
for us,
at-
for our listeners.
I see people at
Listener.
home.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Drink responsibly.
Like, if we played that game right now, we'd never finish the episode.
Yeah.
With just the recording would just stop, and I'd be like, and there's the show.
Yeah, it's true. So back at the lighthouse.
Take a shot.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No, we just said we established we're not doing it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Creature Popcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Lindsay.
Today we are slowly creeping into my hero's filmography, the guy who has given me the most cinematic solace. Everything he does feels like a warm hug to me. I don't know why. We're talking about 1980s The Fog, directed, co-written, and scored by my man John Carpenter.
It was scored? I mean, I feel like it was just jazz the entire time.
He did the music for
That's
it.
score.
Yeah,
If it's music
score.
without,
it's not like
if
traditional
it's
John Carpenter
music
synth
without
music.
There's a
words,
couple
they're
good
scoring
stings
it.
in it.
Okay.
There's a couple times where you're like, hey, John, there you are.
Okay,
But yeah,
okay.
he did almost all of his music.
I knew that, but
Almost.
when I was watching this movie, I was just like jazz everywhere.
The Thing is weirdly scored by Ennio Morricone, which is awesome and weird and different.
That is cool, though.
Wait, is They Live a John Carpenter movie?
They Live is
Did
a
you
John
see it?
Carpenter.
Did you
I've
see that
seen
one?
They Live, and I love that one.
That's
Yeah.
a great movie. Yeah.
That's
we
the-
talked about doing that one, too.
That's the perfect gauge for me then, because They Live is fucking bonkers. And
Yeah.
that's John Carpenter. Like,
I saw it when I was like 13 or 14. I was over at my grandma's house and she had all the cable. And I was the only one still awake because I was 13 or 14 and everybody else went to sleep. And it was like
Yeah.
11 p.m. And I was like, do. And I flipped through the channels and I came across just this crazy movie where this guy's putting on his sunglasses and then like there's these crazy like X-ray people and they have these weird teeth and the subliminal messages. And I was like, what is this?
yeah, it's the perfect
And I
intro
watched
to
the
John
whole
Carpenter.
thing.
It is.
Is doing that at a young age and then going for the next 5 years. Did I have a fever dream? What was that thing I saw? But Creature Pop's tagline is here to kick ass, never out of bubblegum.
Right.
Which is from Roddy Piper's character, I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Yeah, we kind of like took it and made it ours. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the only one I know I've seen for sure, and I was like, "How weird!" I loved it. How strange.
It is-
Well, it's a very
That's the vibe, man.
very prescient movie for today's times.
Yes,
yeah.
I did see a meme recently that was like,
Obey.
yeah, and it was like a picture of Elon Musk on the left side, and then a picture of like the They Live,
Yeah.
like with the
It's-
MAGA hat on, and it was like, "Obey the millionaires."
Like Shepherd Fairies, hope, and obey shit wouldn't exist without that. John Carpenter's beautiful flowing locks are all through our culture.
Yes.
So this technically is your pick.
It is my pick.
Why did you want to do this one?
I wanted to do a John Carpenter movie that didn't have the weight behind
weight,
it.
yeah.
I wanted to like intro into John Carpenter as a John Carpenter movie without any of the societal things that are out there.
The legendary status of some of
status,
these
yes.
things.
we just needed a break.
We needed an intro movie. Yeah.
Sure.
And we did. Yeah, we need a break from all the.
Yeah, this is 1980, so this is John Carpenter's, technically we're going to call it his third film. He did
Yeah.
Assault on Precinct 13.
Okay.
Then he did Halloween, and then this is kind of his follow-up to Halloween. He did some TV in between, and then he did something called Dark Star, which I've never seen, which is almost like a student film. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it's like very early days.
Okay. But you said it was sci-fi.
It is sci-fi.
Yeah.
In fact, it was written by Dan O'Banion, who would then go on and take a bunch of pieces of it and write Alien.
Oh,
with it.
okay. Cool.
So, again,
Yeah.
everyone connects.
Yep.
Let's just get into it.
Okay.
Lindsay, just start me out here.
Okay. So we start with an old sailor is telling a bunch of kids one more story before midnight. Okay. And we're like on a beach with a fire.
This actually starts with an Edgar Allan Poe quote.
I didn't care about
And
that.
I don't know why. Do you know why?
No, it
Okay.
didn't really matter.
It
and
never
then the
really
spinning.
connects?
I mean, it felt like I was watching the beginning of this movie, and I'm like, oh, did he like set the tone for like, Are You Afraid of the Dark in my entire childhood? Because he's got.
I've never
the
seen that show.
I know.
I know.
He didn't grow up with cable,
I didn't grow up with cable.
but they have
Gotta go to your grandma's house.
It's like
grandma's have the cable.
yeah. Well, I don't think his grandma would have had cable comfortable either.
No,
But there was like this, was it a pocket watch, just like spinning and clicking, and it's this overlaying clip. It's very spooky ghost story in the beginning, and it 100% reminded me of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I'm like, did he create that for me? But probably not.
Well, he said that he wanted to make this movie basically as an homage to like a Tales from the Crypt comic book.
Got it.
Which is obvious.
Yeah.
Like once you're watching this is like exactly as weighty as a pulpy comic book.
Yes, I believe that.
This old man...
but which is also Are You Afraid of the Dark is also
you just
doing
brought
the
back
same
to
thing.
me that I had forgotten about the Tales from the Crypt show.
I was watching old episodes of that like 2 nights ago.
That thing freaked me out.
And it's such trash. It's such a trashy show.
Then they started using the Crypt Keeper in like commercials.
And cartoons. There was a cartoon called Tales from the Crypt Keeper on Saturday mornings, and it was like, that show is nothing but boobs and blood and like misogyny, like gleeful misogyny. And then they
the
just
80s.
were like, okay, I guess we'll make one for kids. So yes, we're out in the dark. There's a campfire, an old
sailor and a
bunch of kids.
Yeah.
It's really atmospheric, which I'm going to say that word over and over again
Yeah,
in this
sure.
movie. This is played by Hal Holbrook, this man, and the whole time you're just like, this should be Donald Pleasance.
Oh, well,
Doesn't
I
it?
wasn't.
Okay. But Donald Pleasance shows
Donald
up,
Pleasance wasn't one of my heroes.
is a
at
frequent
all.
collaborator
I know.
of John Carpenter,
Yeah.
obviously, and the cadence and the tone, you're just like, oh, he just hadn't found Pleasance yet.
This man never comes back into the movie,
Nope.
so he probably, Donald Pleasance is like, that's too small of a part.
I don't know. But he didn't come to this role with weight. They wanted him because he was a stage actor.
He was great.
He was a very dignified, like,
Yeah.
old salt when it came to this stuff.
He
so.
told this very basic ghost story very well. So he says, April 21st, 100 years ago, a ship is coming to shore and it's chased by a dense fog. And they see a light on the shore. And they head that way because they can't see. But the light is actually of a campfire. And the ship crashes into the rocks.
Right.
And the Elizabeth Dane, which is the name of the ship, and her crew all sink. And then the fog disappears. The generations of fishermen say that when the fog returns to Antonio Bay, which is the name of this town,
Northern California town.
the men that died that night will rise up and search for the campfire that led to their icy death. Now, I just took his little ghost story and put it in 2 sentences. I did not tell it like he did. He did great. If you want to watch...
11:55, almost midnight. Enough time for one more story. One more story before 12, just to keep us warm.
Yes.
It's good
It
stuff.
was, but like it would have taken me forever to write all that down. But basically, yes. So there was a shipwreck. People died. And then because they want to take revenge on the town, whatever. So...
And the camera pans up, and we have a title card, right?
We do, yep.
John Carpenter's The Fog.
The Fog.
I love John Carpenter's The Everything. He only did it to put ownership on stuff. It's such a swagger
It is.
move.
But he did it from the beginning.
He did it from the beginning, and it's beautiful. I don't know about Assault, but maybe it is.
John Carpenter's Thing.
Well, that's way later than this.
Oh, okay.
But definitely John Carpenter's Halloween.
Yeah.
And then it says Deborah Hill production, so I got to take a little time
yep.
here.
I
Deborah
knew you were
Hill
going to.
is his co-conspirator, John Carpenter's co-conspirator. She co-wrote this movie with him. She co-wrote Halloween 1 and 2 with him and Escape from L.A. with him. She's from Haddonfield, New Jersey, and that's where they got Haddonfield, but they just want to put it in the Midwest. She is a producing queen. Not only did she do Carpenter stuff, but she produced Cronenberg's The Dead Zone. She produced Adventures in Babysitting. She
love that
produced
movie.
Big Time Pee-wee. She died way too early in 2005 of cancer, only 54 years old, and that is a real bummer because she was a lot. So now we go to the voiceover of a DJ.
Yes. So Stevie Wayne is on the radio, and this is Adrienne Barbeau. I made a note here. I'm like, we actually have not talked about her, but I feel like she was such a presence in my house.
Oh, yeah.
You
I
know?
told you last night, I'm like, I think this is where I got the big-haired flannel-wearing thing that I love so much. And look at you right now.
Well,
She is currently married to John Carpenter.
is she currently?
Yes,
Okay.
they are married at this time, and she's also in his next movie.
Wait, like
is-
currently now or currently during this movie?
I'm sorry, during this movie.
Okay.
It's like 79 to 84, so she's in
Okay.
this movie, and that's why she's also in Escape from New York.
Got it.
His next movie.
Got it.
They have the one kid together. Cody Carpenter is their kid.
Got it.
And Cody makes music with his dad, John, to this day.
Okay, cool. So Stevie, she's just talking on the radio, and then we see a guy, Bennett, in a church, and he's closing it up. When Stevie was talking, she's saying it's midnight. You know, obviously we just went from the ghost story, which means it's midnight.
Right.
So, like, the fact that this town is still this much alive is crazy to me. But whatever. I go to bed at like 10.
Yeah,
Michael.
fine. But this is, you know that after you go to bed, people are up, like, cleaning the world, right? And that's what all these people are doing. They're locking up churches, they're sweeping up convenience stores.
But anyway,
But we go from this old man on the beach voice to Adrienne Barbeau's sultry voice over a microphone. You don't see her face just yet.
No, we were just listening.
We're just listening to it. And this is also one of the running things that I love in movies with her DJ is just their narrating.
What's the call tag?
KAB?
KAB?
Yeah.
Okay.
KAB in Tonu Bay, California, 6 minutes after midnight. Yeah. We have the DJ and the Warriors, their Super Soul and Vanishing Point, their Stretch and Texas Chainsaw.
I mean, in this whole era, the DJ is such a big deal.
The DJ is the narrator. And in this, a character, but is also the light, as we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, so a guy, Bennett, he's closing up the church. He tells the priest who's drinking that he's leaving. The priest says to come back at 4, and then Bennett asks if he could be paid, and the priest's like, okay, well, come back at 6.
Right.
And he doesn't give him any money.
Do you know who Bennett is?
No, who's Bennett?
That is John Carpenter.
Oh, is that really?
Yeah, that's, I believe, the only time until Body Bags that he is in front of the camera.
I don't know this movie called Body Bags.
It's an anthology movie from it was only on like TV. It's awesome. I'll show it to you.
Okay. Anyways, after Bennett leaves, the priest gets out of his seat to follow Bennett because he's like, wait, Bennett. And then we hear crackling, and then a big rock falls out of the chimney and lands where the priest was just sitting.
Right.
And then in the cavity of the chimney is a leather book, and he pulls it out, and it's a journal of Father Patrick Malone, 1880.
Right.
And this is also Father Malone.
So this is an ancestor of his.
And then we open the book, and we look at the first page, and it says, midnight to 1 belongs to the dead. God help us.
And so now we're bouncing all over town. I love this. It's beautiful.
Scenes around town.
It's these static night shots of like businesses, and all the lights are lit up. And I mean, it's just
well, it's them closing up the town.
Yeah. They're not static, but they're like showing the exteriors of places, and it's very liminal space. No one's like on the streets, and there's like red lights on this side and the orange light on. Everything's glowing.
I mean,
in the dark.
like for me, like it just reminded me of like pre-COVID times when everything didn't close at 8 p.m. because Starbucks would be open till midnight. Everything, you know, life existed past like into the night, you know, and it doesn't now. But
as we're going through this, weird shit is happening.
Yeah, weird shit's happening.
So at first when the rock falls out of the chimney, you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But now it seems like there's low-key tremors happening.
Yeah, so something's going on. So we go to a scene where a kid's sweeping up the grocery store, and he takes a drink out of the orange juice, the glass jar, and puts it back.
He's a great boy.
And then we hear breaking glass, and then all the glass in the cooler starts to shake, and then a sign is swinging and squeaking. Then we go to a gas station, and the nozzle just jumps off and starts pumping gas.
And then in the background, the car in the garage starts lifting a car
until
and
it hits the bell and it goes ding, ding, ding. And then a line of cars go off and on with horns honking.
It's like car alarms.
Car alarms, yeah.
Go off and on. And then we have a bank of payphones that all just start ringing at once.
Yeah.
And then they like vomit out their quarters.
Yeah.
So this is like not earthquake. It's earthquake
it's
type
not earthquake.
shit, but
it's
also
obviously
like
supernatural.
Ghost shit.
It's ghost shit, yeah. So then we go to a woman's living room. We learn this is Sandy later, but it's a woman's living room, and the TV is all staticky, and then her chair slides across the floor. And then we are with Stevie Wayne again over voiceover, and she's like, it's 6 minutes after midnight, and not a cloud in the sky.
Not a cloud in the sky. Do we know where she's at yet? Where KAB is stationed?
No. Well, she's still just a voiceover here. So then we see a guy in a truck, which is Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins, my man, with no mustache in it. Looks weird.
He picks up a hitchhiker, who is Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
And as they're driving, he offers her a sip of his beer. Because back in the 80s, it wasn't illegal to drink and drive.
He just had a road beer.
He just had road beer.
He goes, sip? And she goes, yes. I love this exchange between them.
No, you're going to have to do this part. I wrote the notes down, but I felt like you're going to do better at this part. Did you write the notes down? Okay.
I think I could do it off the dome. So Jamie Lee gets in the car, takes a sip from beer, and there's some awkward silence. And then she's like, look, this is my first time hitchhiking. I just got to know, are you weird? And Tom Atkins goes, yeah, I'm weird. I'm real weird. She's like, thank God. The last guy who did this.
Her last ride out of San Diego.
Yeah, he was such a normie. He tried to propose to me by the time I got out. And Tom Atkins goes, I thought you said you never hitchhiked before. To which she responds,
not before last week.
Not before last week. You were my
13th ride. And then he goes, weird and unlucky. And
weird and unlucky.
And she goes, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. These two are instantly fucking.
They are. But okay, so all the glass in the truck then suddenly breaks after that conversation. Like all the windshield, everything. Stevie Wayne then comes on the radio 12 minutes after midnight. And then we see Stevie Wayne. So she's in the lighthouse broadcasting. And then there's a big party
In
tonight.
the lighthouse?
Yes,
tomorrow,
so
yeah.
it is awesome. It is a lighthouse on the edge of a pier. You
Yeah.
get to see
Well,
it
it's the edge of
later.
rocks. It's
and
rocks.
it is repurposed into her radio station. It's filled with cassette tapes. It has a bunch
Records.
of records and
Yeah.
art and everything.
It's
and
really cool.
Fucking
It's
awesome
round.
looking.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Let's make this into a lighthouse.
Sounds like a plan. Let's do it. The attic becomes
I will
the
call
lighthouse.
this the lighthouse.
We can totally change the name.
But
Let's
now,
do it.
okay,
Yeah.
because of the fog, we now broadcast
Rechristened
from
it the lighthouse. Well, now Michael's going to have to hang lights everywhere.
I got some over there.
There you go.
And I guess that's where the foghorn goes.
So she's talking about there's a big party celebration coming up tomorrow. It's the 100-year anniversary of their town.
Yep.
And then Dan, the weather guy, he calls her and tells her about a ship 15 miles out. It's called the Seagrass. And that he can see a fog bank rolling in on the radar, which nobody can see.
So very
personally.
cool old school stuff right here. It's
Yeah.
like, so we learn later that Dan and Stevie have never met, have they?
No.
So Stevie's just doing the music and keeping people like company through the night. And then the weatherman has to call in to tell her, hey, you need to let people know what the weather is.
Because this is 1980 and this is how this works.
And Dan's a super flirt on the phone with her. And I just love the fact that they have this little flirty back and forth.
I don't know. Dan seems icky to me.
Oh, he's
so.
skeevy as
Okay.
shit. He
keeps calling her sweetheart and like he's just so ugh. Okay.
And you could tell that she is like
she's icked out by him.
She's
as well.
icked out and she's just she's like, okay.
Because she needs that relationship, but whatever. So he tells her about the fog bank. So she talks on air to the Seagrass, telling them, hey, there's a fog rolling in. You should head back.
And these boys are drunk.
Yeah, they are. So we're on the ship. 3 guys are getting super drunk. They're like laying in shelves or bunks or
They
something.
basically, like, one has a beer just like sitting on his chest and he's laying down. At one point he goes, all right, I'm drunk enough. Let's go in.
Yep. They don't see the fog at first, but then they suddenly see the fog bank shows up and it's got a light inside the fog. They're like looking out the porthole and it's just like, they're like, what is that?
It's one of the things that John Carpenter was disappointed with is he couldn't get this effect done right. And it's an impossible effect. You can't...
Maybe today's time, but not 1980.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can't wrangle fog.
Yeah.
Half the time he does it really well and
He
really
needed
inventive.
CGI then to do it.
And yeah, some of this is CGI.
Yeah.
For what that was
Yeah.
back then. I mean, I would guess that maybe closer to animation than CGI.
Yeah, I think it's animation. It's just like the animated sex scene in The Howling.
Yeah, okay. This looks better than that fucking werewolf sex by Dan's side. But yeah, this is one of the things that John Carpenter was like, I'm going to make a micro-budget little comic book movie with the hardest thing in the world to film, which is sentient fog.
Yep, sentient fog. So the fog is so dense, it's inside the ship, and it takes out the generator, like flows in and then just kills the generator. And then they're outside and they see a ghost ship go by.
It is cool looking.
It is very cool looking.
Because the camera's real low behind them, and you could tell like where the camera placement when the 2 guys walk out, it's looking up from their POV at this giant pirate ship go by, and it is the enormity of it is a perfect.
Now they keep calling
really
it a
evident.
clipper ship.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. I'm not a ship person.
It looks
but
like a pirate.
It looks like a pirate ship, but it's
ship.
not big.
that
It's a small ship.
It's a ghost ship.
It's a ghost ship. And it's got raggedy sails, and it reminds us of those ghost pirate ships we've seen on Pirates of the Caribbean or whatever.
Many
but
Scooby-Doo
those are
episodes.
huge, and this is not huge. This is a small clipper ship, as they call it. So then suddenly there are ghost pirates on the Seagrass in like silhouettes of ghost pirates.
Yeah, there are going to be silhouettes for almost all of this movie.
Right.
They look coolish. I
We see the weapons most of anything.
Yeah, and they have pirate-ass weapons.
They
There's
do.
like swords and hooks and stuff
Well,
like
so one guy gets stabbed in the back by a cutlass, which is pirate.
that. Your knowledge of sharp things coming out again.
Yeah, he's stabbed by the cutlass, and then another guy gets a hook, like you would use to grab large fishes and stuff. The last guy is stabbed in the head with a spike of some kind right through the eyeballs.
This is a weirdly bloodless movie.
It is. It is
It
kind of
really
bloodless.
does feel like Carpenter was doing something a little more chill than Halloween. Like, this feels very PG.
Oh, definitely PG. Yeah. So now we're suddenly back at the lighthouse, and Dan calls Stevie. The fog has moved west, but the wind is blowing east, she says.
That's impossible.
And then she sees a flash of light in the fog, like it's glowing. And then we're back with the hitchhiker and the driver. They're in bed, post-coital, looking at her drawings that she's been doing. And he's like, can I ask you something? And he's like, what's your name? And she's like, Elizabeth.
I love
and he's
they
like, I'm
introduce
Nick.
each other. I'm Nick.
So they've already had sex, and they just not introduced each other.
Yeah.
Themselves.
It's hot. It's cute. I wish these characters were more, but
If it's consensual.
yeah,
do what you're gonna
They
do.
were just having a good time. And these are 2 awesome. I mean, it's Tom Atkins, it's Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
from here on out. So this movie it's a very like experiment in cross-cutting scenes.
It's constant.
We're constantly going storyline to
Constant.
storyline to storyline.
I'm going to be like, we're here, we're here, we're here,
Exactly.
we're here.
I really wish that these two characters had something more to do rather than be just like the Scully and Mulder of this story.
But you need a Scully and Mulder sometimes.
You do. And unfortunately, there's just not much story for them to investigate.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, if they got rid of the entire storyline, I don't think is necessary. Maybe it would have been more.
we'll talk about
Yeah,
that.
we'll talk about it. Okay, so there is a knocking on his door of his apartment or house or wherever they are. And it looks like what's fog outside. And we see from the outside that there's a hook being used to knock on the door. And it's like glass door. One of those French doors? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Really painted a word picture here.
I know, sorry. So Nick is real trepidatious about opening it. It takes his time. But as he starts to unlock the door, the ghost raises his arm to strike, and then the grandfather clock face suddenly breaks. And it's
1 o'clock, right?
It's 1 o'clock. And then we hear a voiceover of, it's 1 o'clock, straight up. Stevie Wayne tells us good night, and the ghost is gone.
So, from this hour, these gosh darn ghost pirates can attack us, but now we're safe.
Now we're safe. It's the next morning.
Why doesn't everyone just leave town?
They don't know what's
They
going on.
don't know ghost pirates are happening.
Yeah, they don't know.
The only actual victims of it so far are dead out in the water in the seagrass.
Yeah.
So, and we know that's the setup. We're going to have the centennial of this town celebration the next night. So now it's a ticking clock to the next midnight when they're going to strike again.
Correct. So the next morning, a boy from the story audience in the beginning, the night before, is seen on the beach with a fishing rod looking, and then he's looking at the rocks, and he sees a gold coin on the rocks. And then the water goes out and comes back in, and suddenly the gold coin is turned into a piece of driftwood. And it says Dane on it, because the ship was called the Elizabeth Dane. He takes it to his mom, who turns out to be Stevie Wayne.
Which is also such a weird moment. This kid who's 12, 13, maybe a little younger.
No, like 10 or 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sees a coin. The coin, then the water hits the coin, and when the water recedes, it's now a big old piece of wood.
And he says this story over and over again, and he is not weirded out. He's just like, it was cool, Mom. It was a gold coin, and then it was driftwood.
This kid is a weirdo. By seeing something transmutate before his eyes and be like, that was neato.
It was neat. So we are inside their house, which they literally live on a beach house, like on the beach, on stilts. So like when the tide comes in, it's under the water. So we see a lot of photos of a missing husband. I'm assuming she's a widow because we never see her husband.
Idea.
And then my note literally is here is, what is a stomach pounder?
and
Okay,
a Coke.
so like he asks Mom, can I have a stomach pounder and a Coke? And I'm like, what is a stomach pounder?
And everyone hit pause on the movie.
Yeah,
and
starts
to figure out
Googling it.
we are in our
Is
separate
it a
rooms.
burger?
So it's not a burger because she literally tells him after lunch he can have a stomach powder. So I did some research, and from what I can understand, it is usually some sort of milkshake type thing, usually made with like peanut butter and things like that.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it is basically thick, like a concrete. You know?
And they mix, like the Coke goes in it like it's a float?
Yeah, you would do them together.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes some sense.
Some sort of thing like that. So that is what I understood.
I literally put in stomach pounder and the IMDb page for the fog came up. That's how, not.
Okay, yeah, because it's not anywhere else. I did the same thing, and I had to do some, like, go down the rabbit hole of Reddit and other commenting things to find out what this is. So the other thing is that they said that in the promo book that came out, the novelization, this Dennis guy, he still called it a stomach pounder, but then he proceeded to say it was McDonald's related, which is not, obviously, because that would be a quarter pounder
that's
or
a
something.
quarter pounder.
And literally, he still says after lunch, so you wouldn't get a hamburger after you already had lunch.
Anyway, this is
matter.
neither here nor there.
This was a big thing for me because I took a little time out to go investigate.
No, I really appreciate it, actually, because I gave up, but it's funny because it's just a throwaway line.
Yeah, but it was like enough, like, what is that?
Yeah.
So Andy, who's a little boy, leaves the board with his mom, that piece of driftwood, to go find more things on the rocks. And then we're with Nick and Elizabeth now, and Nick comes looking for the missing seagrass on the docks.
Because Nick is friends with one of the victims of the seagrass.
The victim.
He's like, he would have come in.
He would have come in, yeah. So he leaves to find somebody he knows who owes him a favor to go and find the seagrass. Elizabeth, she's like, hey, can I tag along? And he says, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
And then, he puts his arm
Yeah,
around
for whatever
her.
reason, she's put off all of her hitchhiking. Well, I guess he's a good lay.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess so.
He's like, kind of like him.
Yeah. So now we're at the setup of the celebration, the centennial celebration, and we meet Mrs. Williams and her assistant Sandy, which we had already met Sandy earlier with
Sandy
her TV
was
in the chair.
the weird chair thing. What is her first name?
Sandy's? Mrs. Williams?
Mrs. Williams.
I don't know. I've always called her Mrs. Williams the entire time.
Okay, interesting. Because
But
I
it
only
is-
called her by her first name.
But
in
it
the
is
movie.
Janet
but
Leigh.
It's Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee's mom.
Yeah.
in this movie. So Janet Leigh, I've watched this movie 3 or 4 times and it never clicked to me that this is Janet Leigh. I don't know why. I mean, she's the iconic shower screamer in Psycho. It is royalty.
It is royalty.
Here.
So Stevie Wayne is driving a VW Thing up to the lighthouse.
Isn't that the coolest name of a car ever?
I mean, yeah. So there's this boy in high school that his dad was like the superintendent, and he had a yellow VW Bug convertible. He had a VW Thing.
He liked VWs.
He would drive different cars to school, and I'm like, he had so much money, this kid would just drive.
And they live in...
I don't remember.
I'll cut that part out.
I don't remember.
You guys have this.
That's a real
history.
giveaway.
They probably lived in... I mean,
Cut
to be
that
fair,
out.
they probably did.
I'll bleep it.
Yeah.
They live in...
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect. But it was just like, I remember that. And as soon as I saw this, I'm like, that's a VW Thing. Because these were not cars that were made for very long.
I love how detail-oriented we're being on this one because there's just so little story.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, she's driving a VW Thing up to the lighthouse, and she has the driftwood with her.
Is this when we see her walking to the lighthouse?
No, God, this is so early.
Okay.
I feel like an entire hour in movie time has gone past before she even gets to the lighthouse, but
That's
whatever.
fine. I just want to talk about how beautiful that scene is.
Oh, yeah, that's really great. So then we hear a Coast Guard bulletin over the radio about a bolo for the seagrass. And then we're with Nick Elizabeth on the boat to find the seagrass. They find their guy. They're out on the boat. They're looking for the seagrass. Now we're with Mrs. Williams talking about her missing husband. Her husband didn't come home last night. She's telling Sandy.
So Mrs. Williams' husband was also on the seagrass. We don't know.
We don't know which one it is.
We don't know if this is also Nick's friend. They're one and the same, or it's just two.
Well,
of the
and I'm
three.
assuming it is because Nick is with her later. So
That's right. So again, we're doing. I don't know. Are we gonna bounce this hard?
I am. I'm sorry.
This is gonna be a hard one to talk about because it goes so fast
It's
to
just-
storyline to storyline to storyline. Which was, to be fair, like a criticism when this movie came out. To watch it, it's a delight.
I feel like this story needed this crazy
It
cut,
makes
or
it
else it
feel
would have been
fast.
so boring.
Yeah, it makes it feel like it's
the only
urgent and
reason why it's
fast.
entertaining is that you're constantly like, dun, dun, dun.
I
You're
mean,
like,
it's not the only
whiplash a
reason.
little
It's also
bit.
a John Carpenter
sure,
movie,
sure,
and it
sure.
feels
But I
like
meant
a
like,
cup of cocoa in your stomach. It's like a warm hug.
warm hug. Understood. Okay. So we're on the seagrass because they found it. And they're looking for 3 men on the board. They're on board. They can't find them. But there's water in the generator. But the deck is dry as a bone.
Yeah, so basically they just keep talking about how everything about it seems like it was underwater.
Right.
And it isn't.
Right. So then we're back with Mrs. Williams and her assistant, and they go into the church, but the door is open. And they're calling for Father Malone. They split up to look for him, and he comes out of the dark, like, startling
He just
her. Like,
jumps out of
he
the
literally
dark.
did. He just jumped out of a corner. Like,
It's very funny.
It's so
and this
dumb.
man looks exactly like Edgar Allan Poe. Doesn't he?
he kind of does.
He
doesn't
has
he?
the
Yeah, he
the mustache,
does.
the haircut. He looks like, and I'm like,
It must have been intentional.
intentional because of the quote.
Yeah,
in the
Well,
beginning.
and then just a little bit ago, he was like rapping on the glass window in the fog.
that was,
That
a
was
ghost
with
pirate.
Nick, yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah.
something was rapping on the window.
Yeah,
and I
no,
was
there-
like,
Chambered. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear it, yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't for the life of me figure out why the Poe quote is in the beginning of this, and I'm scared that it's incredibly obvious, and I'm just being a dumb.
I don't know. So, like, he shows Mrs. Williams the journal and starts to read out of it. So, like, okay, this whole Mrs. Williams storyline for me, I don't feel like it's necessary. Like,
It
the
isn't.
priest could have done all of this without her.
Yeah, I mean, Liz and Nick could have.
And,
I
like,
think
later with the weird celebration, which I'll talk about when we get there.
Yeah, I think it's because they had Janet Leigh.
Yeah, so anyways, they start to read out of the journal, and then we're back on the seagrass again, and Nick says all the gauges are broken. Then we're back at the church again, and
we need to just maybe streamline this
no,
a
because
little
these
bit.
things are important. All the gauges and broken are
I know.
important. I thought about this. I'm like, how do I put this back together so it made sense? But I couldn't figure
You
it out.
don't. You do what you do, which is like, and then, and then, and then. In the
So,
order.
okay, we're at the church, and the journal states that a man from a leper colony wants to relocate off an island to the site of the town, or about 1 mile away from the town.
And not just a man, a wealthy man.
A wealthy man. He had purchased a ship called the Elizabeth Dane, and he only asked for permission from the priest, the old Father Malone.
This is Malone's grandfather.
Yeah,
Who wrote this journal.
And then the priest talks in the journal about having to measure his compassion against his revulsion, because leper people are basically rotting.
He was very worried about living that close to a leper colony.
Yes, he was.
This whole leper colony is rich as fuck, though.
Yeah,
This is what the crux of the story is.
Yeah.
But
So back on the seagrass, there is salt water in the beer cans, and the ship is a mess. He said, like, basically turned over on its side and back up again. Now we're back at the church, and
God, this is a fun movie to watch, everybody. I promise.
the journal reads, April 20th, the town met to plan the death of the leper colony.
Yes, there's a conspiracy to put these people on their way, and then
Now we're back on the seagrass again.
God damn it.
And we're waiting for the Coast Guard. Elizabeth apologized for being such bad luck, and Nick tells a story about his dad finding an abandoned ship when he was a kid and how he found a gold doubloon minted from Spain in 1867, and how when he went home, told the family the whole story about finding this doubloon and how, like, when they found the empty ship, like, the food was still warm. It was out on the table.
It was like
the cup had rusted, though. It was
this.
It was an episode of Doctor Who. And then...
It's also the Marie Celeste.
Yes.
The Marie Celeste in
Yes.
real life was a ship that was found with a meal
with a bunch
still
of people
warm and-
empty, yeah.
Yeah.
But then he takes the
everybody
coin home and he goes to get the coin out to show his son, and the coin has disappeared. And then, meanwhile, as he's telling the story, a cabinet behind Elizabeth pops open and a dead body falls on her. And she screams. And she does a magnificent job of screaming.
Well, she's her mother's daughter.
Yes.
She is the OG scream queen.
Yes. And I only say this
queen.
because I have other comments about other screams later in the movie. So.
It's wild. I love it. I don't think we've ever watched two different movies before. You're on this over here, and I'm on this over here.
Okay. Back at the church, the journal talks about how the deed was done. The false fire that they put on the beach, and aided by the unearthly fog they had that night, was able to basically murder all the lepers.
It's the beginning story, but now it's with intent to kill these people.
Correct. And then the priest is like, the celebration tonight is a travesty. They are honoring murderers.
They're honoring murderers. His delivery there is great.
Yeah, he's great.
So they set a fire, called the ship in, and then just killed everyone?
They set a fire so that they would be pulled to the rocks instead of to the shore.
They crashed.
to
The
show
fire
them-
brought them
yeah.
to the rocks.
Yeah, they were trying, we'll light the fire to show you where to go.
Yeah.
And then led them to the wrong place.
And of course, Father Malone is drunk this whole time.
He's drunk.
this
He's constantly
tragic drunk character.
Yeah, so Stevie has arrived at the lighthouse now. So
Okay.
she's carrying an actual tape recorder with her, and she puts a tape in it and listening to recorded promos as she walks down this giant
Path.
path.
Sloping staircase to the
White
to the
House.
little squat lighthouse.
And she's carrying the driftwood with her, too.
Yeah, she has the wood that says Dane on it under her arm. The sea is
Beautiful.
in front of her. It is beautiful.
beautiful
I
lighthouse.
want to live here in this place.
You don't, because it's
it'd
too
be-
close to the ocean.
It's underwater now.
So now we're back at the church, and the priest says Antonio Bay has a curse on it, and Mrs. Williams and Sandy just leave, and they continue to prep for the celebration. Like, they are not letting whatever this priest is saying bother them.
They show up because he's going
supposed
to
to
be
bring-
part of the
he's supposed to say
celebration.
something, but he doesn't come.
He is a drunk, and
Yeah.
they're hoping he's not in his cups.
Yeah.
And he's saying this story, and they're like, you're going to fuck up our day.
Yeah.
We're not fine. We're just going to leave.
And they leave. Back at the lighthouse, the driftwood starts to, like, ooze water.
That's cool.
And it takes the tape recorder out, and the recording changes, and a voice says, something that someone lives with, like an albatross around the neck. No, more like a millstone, a plumbing stone, by God. Damn them all. And then it bursts into flames.
Whoa.
Did it not say something about six? The six?
Okay.
Okay.
So then for a second, the wood says 6 must die instead of Dane. And
Oh,
then-
interesting.
And then it turns back to Dane when she gets a fire extinguisher
I must have
and extinguishes it
blinked
out.
and missed that.
Yeah.
Because I knew
Oh, I
from the
I
research
rewounded
that
it
was-
back and back and
okay.
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 already died, right?
3 have already died.
So
Right.
we're halfway.
Yeah, we're
and
halfway.
and that'll be marked. I feel like this was such a attempt. This was kind of a failed attempt to like number the dead,
Oh,
counting
sure.
to 6.
Yeah.
Because there's only one other. We're gonna. Shit. Go ahead.
We'll get there.
So we're with Nick and Elizabeth on a boat coming back to shore, and they're talking about how the body had drowned, the one that fell
Right.
on Elizabeth. The body had drowned without being in the water.
Yes.
So then now we're with Stevie. She calls Andy and asks about the wood and tells him not to pick up any more and not to leave the house. She's like, don't pick up anything off the beach. Don't leave the house tonight. And makes him promise.
Yeah.
And he promises. So then Stevie is on the air.
Did his babysitter show up in the scene?
No.
Yet? Okay.
Oh, well, she was there. She comes in afterwards
She
and
asked
said, what does your mom want? And he's like, nothing.
So, so Stevie's at work. The kid's been alone at the house for a second, but now they're a babysitter.
Old lady
arrives.
babysitter,
Yeah.
you know. Probably
Col-
a neighbor. I never wrote her name down, but it starts with a K. Cole, I don't remember her name.
Cobritz. Poor Miss Cobritz, I say later.
Okay. So we're at the morgue, and Nick and the coroner are talking about how the body seems like it's been underwater for a month.
Yeah.
And Nick is like, that's impossible. I literally saw this guy 3 days ago.
Right. And then, but Nick is also like, did you feel that? It just got freezing.
Suddenly cold. Yeah. And the body starts to move.
So they're out in the hallway.
They are.
Jamie Lee's alone with the body in
the other room. And the body starts to move, and then it sits up and grabs the scalpel and starts to walk towards Elizabeth. And she's not looking at it at all.
Yeah, her back is turned.
And then the body falls, and she screams, and then Nick comes running. And then
this body has tormented her twice now.
Yeah, twice now. And we see that the body actually fell on the ground and then carved a 3 on the floor.
Carved a 3 on the ground.
So
that will be the last time we really talk about the numbers of... until the end.
Yeah. So now night is falling. Foghorns are blaring because the fog is rolling in. And we are at this weird celebration. So my comments about this weird celebration.
Yeah, let's hear this.
Okay, they keep calling it a celebration, but it is literally the most stoic thing I've ever fucking seen. Basically, they're having a centennial celebration to, like, have some sort of statue, which we haven't really looked at. They, like, had an earlier scene where they kind of, like, lift a sheet for a second, but they never really show us what the statue is of. And they have this, like, stage where they have
like bleachers.
They have bleachers on one side and a stage with like the town elders or whatever. And this is like the most. Everybody's like quiet. Nobody's talking. There's no music. There's no
joy. There's no celebration.
There's nothing.
It's weird.
And they literally have this thing where they talk about stuff, and then they're gonna have a candlelight vigil and then fucking march in front of the statue that takes fucking hours, one by one, single file, to look at this fucking statue with their fucking candles,
which we never see.
I think is insane. This is not a celebration.
No,
this is some weird
like
pagan
rite.
This is exactly what I was about
and
to
I
say.
did write memorial in my notes.
This is like a memorial. This is like you said, pagan rite. This seems like mournful and in reverence of something.
Yeah. So I have a lot of problems with this celebration. So whatever. We're at the celebration, and Nick tells the sheriff and Mrs. Williams that they found the boat, but not her husband. So the body was not her husband.
Okay.
So they hear Stevie talking on the radio, and then Nick calls Stevie to talk about the fog. He calls the radio station.
This is a cool dive bar they're in.
Yeah.
Sorry, I always got to point out cool dive bars.
It's like a bar literally next to the celebration outside.
Yeah, and it looks like it's a shotgun bar. I'm not going to say the name of what.
Straight
whatever.
up. Dock bar, New England dock bar. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. And yeah, Nick is calling on the payphone.
He's calling on a payphone to Stevie to talk, and she's telling him about how the fog was glowing last night, and it was moving against the wind, you know, and then how the town went bonkers.
Essentially, this is just all the storylines kind of starting to coalesce.
But I mean, like, she doesn't know this man, but she's telling him everything. And then she tells him about the wood, like, you know, the driftwood her kid found. And then Nick and Elizabeth decide to go out to the lighthouse. They're like, we're going to go out there and talk to her. So then
we cut to Dan.
Dan, the weatherman, who decided to go, instead of going to the celebration, he wanted to go into the office so that he could flirt with Stevie again.
Dan the weatherman.
Yes,
Dan
exactly.
The weatherman. That's literally what I have here. Dan the weatherman.
So when he gets to the weather station, Dan calls Stevie about another fog bait coming in so that she can tell people on the radio. And so she says it on the radio that the fog is actually heading straight towards the weather station. And where it's located on the radio, she's like, if anybody out there needs this information, here it is. And like, so then Nick, he stops his truck and turns around to head towards the weather station.
Intense. Like there is this,
and I love that she can't just call him, so she uses the radio to her advantage.
Right,
Yeah.
she has to. So that's what this is that in absence of a lighthouse, these people were dashed upon the rocks and put a curse upon the town. In them coming in, Adrienne Barbeau is the light. She is the one in the lighthouse telling the people where the fog is coming.
Yeah.
So she is guiding people to safety as it envelops the town. It is subtle. It's perfect. It is this wonderful
Except for,
little...
you know, like the amount of people in this town that are stuck at the celebration and only the 6 people that escape, whatever.
This movie was made for peanuts. There wasn't an ability to like have a bunch of extras. Anyway.
Okay, so Dan is telling her, like, after she talked to the radio, she goes back to the phone, and Dan's like, hey, the fog should be right at my door. And then she's like, something is different, Dan. The fog is glowing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the light goes out at the weather station. And then all the measurement devices start going crazy. Then there's knocking at the door. And I wrote here, Dan is a misogynistic douchebag because he kept calling her sweetheart, and the way he was acting with her, I hate him.
He's not that, whatever.
He's that bad.
It's just, I think, some standard.
It's just standard ass
80s
80s bullshit.
It is, but he's like the
man
only
talking
one
to a
doing it.
woman.
Like, nobody else in this movie is doing any of this shit.
Well, don't get me wrong. Like, he's designed to be unlikable, so when he dies, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, So he opens the door and shrugs. He's like, oh, there's nothing here. And then he gets a hook in the neck.
Yeah.
Stevie starts broadcasting to talk to the sheriff. She's like, this is an emergency. Sheriff, please call me. This is my number. And so somebody goes and gets him from the celebration. And then the sheriff calls her. And then as soon as they connect, they get disconnected. The fog takes out the phone.
Yeah, it's a hilarious scene where it just shows like the telephone pole and the fog like going up to it. It's
And then it
like,
starts
and then it's all sparks, and the
flickering,
fog's just like, "I'll get you." And like the fog literally has to go and reach and turn off a light switch.
Yes, something like that. So then we see the fog rolling in at a power station, and then it gets into the power generator and takes out the entire power of the town. And then we go to the ocean where the fog is all glowing and it's like bluish. And she realizes it's heading towards the beach. And she's like, oh, fuck, Andy. Well, she says, oh, no, Andy, because this is got to be a PG-13 movie. And she runs down the stairs to start the generator so she can continue broadcasting.
Yeah.
And
she has to get this transmission back up so she can warn her kid.
right, but he doesn't have a radio that works. He never hears her.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Doesn't she get it started and then she like screams, "Get out of the house"?
She does, but the only person who hears her is Nick.
Okay.
So, Nick and Elizabeth.
That's why Nick and Liz go. Okay.
So Nick and Elizabeth are at the weather station, and Andy and his babysitter see the fog roll in. Stevie finally gets this generator started, and then she runs and starts yelling into the radio for Andy to get out, get away from the fog, to run.
And she's giving her an address over there as well. So Nick and Liz start heading over that way.
Yeah.
This is a great scene.
Yeah, it is.
I love it's designed where the fog is, because we know this house on the beach on stilts. We can see the fog coming off the ocean and slowly go around the house.
Yeah.
And then the
Babysitter
action inside the house, you're like, your ways out are getting less.
Yeah, they are. They're
less
getting less and less. So the babysitter tells Andy to close all the windows. This is where actually, technically, at the weather station, where Nick and Elizabeth, they call someone. This is a weird scene. They call someone, nobody answers, and then they leave. And then they hear the...
Skip it.
they hear on the radio that Andy is trapped in the fog. So back at Andy's house, someone is knocking. And the babysitter tells him to go to his room, and he does not want to go. He's like, no, I just want to stay here and see who it is before I go in my room. And she's like, go in your room. And so he turns around, and right as he turns around and closes the door, the ghost grabs the babysitter, and we hear murder noises. We never see her die.
That's where poor Miss Corbett shows up.
Aww.
So then the fog is oozing under Andy's door, and the ghosts are starting to, like, break in. Like, they're breaking in. Nick and Elizabeth get to the house, and Nick realizes where Andy is, and he breaks this bedroom window and gets Andy out. They all jump in the truck, but Elizabeth is jumped into the driver's seat, and the tires are just spinning, and she's grinding all the gears. Like, they can't get away. And then we see all the ghost silhouettes.
Of course, Elizabeth, a terrible woman driver.
Yeah, that's how...
No, come on. Y'all fine.
And he's yelling, reverse, reverse. Yeah. They finally get the truck to move. Right as
the truck is surrounded by leper creeps.
Yeah, and so as soon as they're like right there, they get the truck to move. Now we flash to the celebration, and it's wrapping up, and Mrs. Williams is going home. They're like, you should go home. She's like, there's only be 30 more minutes before everybody gets to see the statue. So these people are still single file with their fucking candles.
And it's like
going by the statue in the background. Like,
do we see the statue?
No, we never see the statue. We never see it.
It's the title of the episode.
And it's so fucking dumb.
Never has the title come to me so clearly.
Okay.
Okay, so Stevie talks to Andy through the radio, and she's like, I hope you understand why I couldn't just leave and come get you, and that she had to stay here. So then she goes talking to the audience, and she's like, the fog is moving inland. It's going towards the armory? Like, what fucking town has an armory? Whatever.
I don't know. You watched. I don't remember that line at all.
So then Nick and Elizabeth get to town, but so does the fog. So they have to back up. And Mrs. Williams and Sandy also get to town because they're going home, and they have to also turn from the fog. And Stevie's like, go north towards the old church. It's the only place left to go.
Right.
So both of these cars head towards the church. They all get to the church, and the priest is like, we can't hide anymore. Anywhere we go, it's going to find us. So everybody's there.
Everyone's now together. Drunk Father Malone, maybe not even drunk anymore, is just resigned to, like, we've got to face this thing. No, he is drunk and reading the journal. I do have it here. He is drunk.
They're all like, hey, there's a study in the back, because they were like, is there a basement? There's somewhere we can hide. And the best they can give is a study in the back, which this fucking old church would have had a basement, but whatever. As they're going into the study, the journal is left on a bench. And the fog is also headed toward, we can see the fog coming over the hill towards the lighthouse.
Yeah, she's barricading herself in the lighthouse.
So in the study, the priest mentions the journal and how it's in the sanctuary, and Nick goes to go get it, because it's all they've got is this journal that might have some answers. Then we hear knocking on the lighthouse door. The fog is seeping underneath.
Barricading herself in.
Yeah, well, and then they...
The momentum needs to keep going.
Sure. So then we're back at the church, and they read in the journal that the old priest took all the gold from the town and hid it. They took the gold from the leper colony as payment for letting the leper colony move, and then they killed them all, so they have all their gold.
Well, not all. They then used the riches to found the town.
They were going to, but the priest stole it and hid it from them. And he makes a comment how, like, somebody's ancestor was really upset about, like, the gold going missing. And he's like, but I took it. And he hid it. And he says he hid it, and he thinks if they return the gold to the ghost, Blake?
His name's Blake. There's a leader of the colony who's always been named Blake, but we just skipped over it.
So then now the ghosts have start breaking all the windows in the church. Back at the lighthouse, Stevie is trying to keep the ghost from breaking the door down, but she doesn't succeed, so she runs up the stairs and goes out onto the lighthouse balcony. You know,
it's awesome looking. It's a cool little, like, rusted metal set piece, and she's just trying to get higher and higher.
Yeah,
and
so she goes out on the outside balcony.
Her last place she can go.
Back at the church, in the chimney, they found a large gold cross.
It is fucking hilarious.
And it's like
Father
they melted
Malone
all down.
Fucking hunks out this giant golden cross and is like...
He's like, they must have melted all the gold down to this cross.
This is where they hid the gold, and it's just like this fucking 800-pound thing that he's lugging in front of him.
So then a ghost hand breaks through a window and grabs Elizabeth's hair. And using this distraction, the priest takes the golden cross out to the sanctuary. At the lighthouse, Stevie is watching the ghost creeps around her. So basically, you have the lighthouse. It's all glass all the way through. So she's on one side and the ghost is on the other. And she's like just going around as she can see him. Okay. So there's a bunch of ghosts at the church in the sanctuary with the priest. And he tells Blake that he has the gold. His grandfather stole it and he must answer for it.
Blake steps up. Most of these ghost pirates are all in silhouette. Blake has these glowing red eyes that look pretty cool. So he kind of stands out from the rest of them.
Right. And Father Malone is like, I'm Father Malone. I'm the sixth conspirator. Take me.
Which is this thing that the movie wants to do but doesn't, in that are all these deaths the ancestors of the conspirators, because they don't say it.
They don't say it.
So I would assume that Mrs. Kobach...
But then why was it after Andy? Because he's from Chicago.
Was it after Andy or was it after Mrs. Kobach?
It was after Andy. Because it was breaking down his door.
Look, again, it's not doing it well.
Yeah.
But the idea must be that we're killing ancestors.
It should be, yes. It should be that they are killing ancestors. But they also might be killing witnesses. Who knows?
Maybe they just like to kill. Ghost pirates do that.
So now Stevie has had to climb onto the roof of the lighthouse. And she almost slips and falls off, whatever.
It's funny, I've been talking about her on the roof of the lighthouse.
She has not been on the roof at all. She's looking at a ghost coming up the ladder onto the roof, and she doesn't see the one right next to her. And he stabs her in the shoulder, and she falls towards the other one. And then we see a gross wormy face. Which
is such a shitty, disappointing look.
It is. It's green ghost.
It's just like green goo and like some mealworms stuck to it. And you're like, Carpenter wanted this to be like a leper. Like, how cool would it be for like waterlogged leper faces?
Right. And this is my other, and she's doing this stupid girly screaming, and she steals his hook and she's like swinging it at him. Like, I feel bad because like Jamie Lee's scream was so much better.
Well, it's why she got the term Scream Queen.
So then back at the church, Blake's ghost grabs the gold cross and then it starts to light up. And it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And it's about to like burst into flames. Who knows? Nick grabs the priest off the cross and the light gets so intense and then it dissipates.
Yeah. And basically it's just like, boom, and we're done.
Yeah. And then the ghosts disappear.
It's a poof.
And Stevie's alone on the roof of the lighthouse. And the people in the church all go outside and they watch the fog just roll away. And then Stevie gets back on the radio to give a warning of what happened.
And like a threat that it could happen to you. It's so weird.
I know,
It's like
I didn't do anything she said. But she was saying, like, if this ever happens again, this is what's wrong.
it's the fog. And
Yeah,
you're
it's
just
the
like,
fog.
okay, I guess.
And then the priest goes back inside the church and he's like, why not 6, Blake? Why not me?
Why didn't he take me? And then
Yeah,
they
and the
come
fog
kill him.
rolls in, and then the ghosts are all back, and then slash. And that's cut.
And
End
that's
of
cut.
movie.
So, what'd you think?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm glad I picked it as a
Talking of-
beginning John Carpenter movie.
Yeah, it's a great starter Carpenter.
It's a starter Carpenter. It is definitely a B movie.
That's all he
It didn't
does.
have any money, but it had a great story.
And it's a vibe, man. Like, talking about it, it sounds clunky and weird, but it is just liminal spaces. I love it when they take time to be like, this is outside this building. This is around the corner. This is over here. And just showing you little pieces of a town holistically.
Right.
There's not a ton of story here.
There's not. It's a short ghost story that they extended into a longer movie.
Which basically I just thought, it's a nice little tale that reminds us that the rich will ultimately eat the rich, but in the process will produce a terrifying fog that fucks up the rest of us. I mean,
No, that's perfect.
That's prescient, isn't it?
I definitely think, watch the movie. I do say watch the movie.
I say watch all John Carpenter movies in the 70s and 80s.
And leave your phone off or away.
I say that about every movie you watch. And I stand by it. So that was The Fog. Now, do we have a question from John?
What horror movie do you think has the best soundtrack or score?
Michael listens to John Carpenter
In the car.
in the car all the time.
I have...
Driving your car to John
Yeah.
Carpenter.
You have no idea how exciting and fun it is to go to work with like. So John Carpenter is he's probably second to John Williams, who did the Jaws, to doing the Halloween. Everyone knows.
I mean, John Carpenter is the reason why we picked the music what we did for our podcast.
Yeah.
We try to get it
A Carpenter vibe
Yeah.
to it. Yeah. And so while Halloween is on every Halloween soundtrack ever, you hear it in stores or whatever around that time of year. Carpenter's music for all of his movies are great. And so much so that he's pretty much retired from making movies, but he still produces a series of albums called Lost Themes. And he produces them with his son, Cody, and they tour. I almost made her go to a place to watch 120 minutes of synthesizer music.
I would have been on my phone the whole time. I would have been so bored.
So I can't pick one, but Ennio Morricone is he's a spaghetti Western music maker. He did the thing also.
Yeah.
And that's great. But Carpenter's my vibe. Carpenter has a whole genre, like people who follow her. There's a band called Carpenter Brute that does electronic music, dark wave, stuff like that. So that's it for me.
Scream 2 was my favorite. Or Scream 3, sorry. Scream 3. It's Scream 3.
Well, no matter what, it has
Scream 3.
Nick Cave's in the Bad Seeds Red Right hand on it, because I
course
think
it did.
that is in every single
No,
one
it's
of the
Scream 3.
movies.
Scream 3, I had that soundtrack and when it came out, and I listened to Scream 3 over and over again. It had lots of awesome songs on it. I am not give a shit about music in movies a lot of the times. I mean, some movies you're like, I leave the movie, hey, I like the music in that movie.
Yeah.
But when I was younger and I would pay for fucking albums,
Yeah.
you had to go to the store and buy. You would watch a movie, and I still to this day, I watch a movie, oh, I like that song. I save that song on my Spotify list. So to this day, I still do stuff or show or whatever. That's how I hear a lot of music that I don't normally would get across. But back then, you go to the CD store and you'd be like, oh, I really enjoyed the music on this movie, and I know 8 of these 10 songs, and I would buy the soundtrack. I had more soundtracks in the 90s than I did regular albums.
And if I'm going to answer, like...
Because it's basically a made-for-me mixtape.
Then, exactly. And I have one that stands head and shoulders above the rest when we're talking about 90s soundtrack, and that's The Crow. That album was
the Lost Highway soundtrack.
I mean, I'm telling you, The Crow is...
The Crow was a great
Trent
soundtrack.
Reznor.
It was,
It's Jesus and Mary Chain. It's Henry Rollins doing
Sure.
that Ghost Rider song.
Sure.
Ghost Rider,
Another big one
Motorcycle
was the
Hero.
Empire Records soundtrack. Come on.
Would that, are we doing any soundtrack or are we doing horror?
We just venture away.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Let's just venture. Yeah.
So, as
Empire
far as soundtracks
Records
go,
soundtrack.
I will stand by The Crow.
Sure.
I had growing up the Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis Freaky Friday soundtrack.
I don't
I
even
had
know
that
what was
on a
on
CD.
that.
They're doing a sequel to that.
I
Both of them.
know.
I'm actually very excited about watching that.
Yeah,
I don't know this. Is it called Freakier Friday? I mean, it has to be, right?
It should be.
Or is it like Freaky Saturday?
Oh, that would be hilarious. When I was Googling what movies came out on Friday the 13th, this Freaky Friday
yeah.
movie did. Yeah.
I just don't think.
yeah, it's called Freakier Friday.
Nice. Good
I-
job.
yeah, that seems
The
obvious.
only
Should
thing
have called
I'm
Spooky Saturday.
I-
Just the alliteration.
the only thing I'm worried about is that they're not going to spend enough time with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis because they're going to tailor this to the
Is this-
youth, and there are two. So
It's going to be their
Is Lindsay supposed to have their own kids?
it's in the trailer. There are 4 body swaps. So
That's
it's
too many body swaps.
Lindsay
Yeah.
Lohan has a daughter, and then there's like a sleepover at the house, so the daughter's friend is there, and so then it's Jamie Lee Curtis, Lindsay Lohan's daughter, and the daughter's friend all do like a
No,
Man,
too
you're-
many. Too many.
You're going to be bouncing all over
too many.
storylines as if it's the fog
Well,
or something.
The 2 girls are probably going to go to school together, so they'll be
Yeah.
together. But I think it's so that they can put Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan in the scenes together.
They're almost going to like book end it with them and then have this
But
the
there's,
story
I
be
did
the
see the
younger
part,
actors.
where they wake up and they swap, and there is the like.
So you've seen this trailer. Like, you know about this.
Obviously.
Okay. All right.
No, I watched it, and they do, and it is like Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis in the bodies of these younger girls trying to calm them down because they're like, it's okay, we've done this before, it's gonna be all
Body
right.
swapped before.
So I was like, I just want to make sure that there's enough Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis in it, and I was like, because I'm old now, I don't care about those damn kids, I don't follow them.
I mean, maybe in an episode you'll have to do a special report because we're not watching that one.
I mean, if it was a Saturday afternoon, I had nothing better to do, and it was for free streaming, I might watch that movie.
Have you seen the OG?
Yes, of
like
course
not
I
the
have.
OG, but the
I've seen
Jamie
the
Lee
OG
Curtis.
also.
No, oh, yes. But you've seen the Jamie Lee Curtis,
Yeah.
Lindsay Lohan one. Okay.
Yes, I have seen that one.
That's a soundtrack I bought. Lindsay Lohan herself sings like 2 songs on the soundtrack.
Sure.
Yeah, that's one.
Sure.
She was a musician before everything, right? She did
No.
music. Is
No,
that not
she
right?
was an actress
She was in
first
an-
and then like launched
Not a body
small-
swap. She was in that movie where the remake of
Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, which
Oh
was
my
the
God.
remake of
No, I thought she was in the little kids movie first. Where they
That's
the
Parent Trap.
Parent Trap. Thank you.
Parent
That
Trap.
was where she started.
but she
Parent
was in
Trap.
Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, which is
That's another body
My
swapping movie.
Fair Lady,
I mean, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and then
My Fair Lady.
in the high school they're doing if I should just start my own podcast, it's just about like
Lindsay
anything that
Lohan stuff?
happened between like 1998 and 2007.
Hey.
Specific.
Yeah. All those teenage Nickelodeon movies and
I was there. I had nothing going on. I still don't have anything going on.
Well, that was our question from John. Do you have a question from John? You can let us know on Instagram or at creaturepop@gmail.com. Johnny will read your question to us and we'll answer it. You've just been privy to another episode of the Creature Popcast. I want to thank our producer, Jamie. You can find her at cherrystreetstudios.com or cherry_street_studios on Instagram. She's the one on our 1s and 2s and makes us sound so sweet. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod for all of our music. All of our art is made by me and Lindsay. You can see all of that and get our episodes, our t-shirts, and all of our weirdness at creaturepop.com. Until next time, love you, John.
Bye, John.
Bye.